don't forget about the bank option, both the small banks, medium banks. There's SBA loan opportunities from the government. There's grant opportunities of look at the obvious places for the people that have the most money, which are the institutions. What's up, everybody? Mason McDonald and Dan Haberkost with another episode of The Big Picture Blueprint. And today it's just Dan and I, and we're going to be talking about some of our experiences that we've had over the past few weeks at events that we've gone to, as well as the last few years in the industry, and how we can help you become a more effective networker within the land space. But before we jump into today's show, Dan, how are you doing?
I'm good, Mason. It's definitely turning to spring out here. It's really warm and nice, and this is one of my favorite times of year, so definitely enjoying spring in San Diego.
Nice. Well, we got snow and we have 50-mile-an-hour gusts right now, so it's not as pretty of a day out here in Colorado, but it was 2 days ago, which is how it works out here. But
yeah,
Dan and I were actually in the desert last week. We went to the International Builders Show, which is an event that's kind of put together by the National Association of Home Builders. And there were over 80,000 people at this event. And they were everyone from builders to software companies to developers and vendors of kitchen and bathroom appliances and everything in between from all over the world. And it was interesting for me kind of coming from the corporate world, where this event felt a lot more similar to some of the healthcare conferences that I had gone to in the past, and a lot of the networking events that I did through, ACHE, or the American College of Healthcare Executives. And it felt similar to that compared to a lot of the smaller local real estate investor association meetups that I do, or my own land investing group that I host, where it's very, very small mom and pop shops as versus the institutional guys. And it was really refreshing. And that's kind of where the idea of this episode today came from, of whenever you become your own boss, you have ample amount of time. And sometimes that time ends up being filled by a lot of wasted meetings, wasted events, and wasted networking opportunities that really don't do that much. And so we're going to hopefully guide you guys today on where to spend the most time effectively, who you should be meeting, and how to become a real effective networker in this more unique land investing space.
Yeah, I think that was well said, Mason. And just to make this very concrete, what we're talking about, guys, is really how to meet the lenders, investors, builders, etc., that you want to meet. I think through a lot of the people I do business with, that fund deals that I do, that Mason does, put money into our fund, that I partner with on day-to-day business, and I've met them through one form of networking or another. And so I just want to make this more concrete, because networking is a bit of a broad term that's often parodied. I mean, I had just watched a very satirical show called Corporate, and there was a whole episode parodying networking and how ridiculous it can be. And so this can be a really useful tool and can accelerate your business and help you find the people that you need to move forward. Or it can be a massive time suck, which I think Mason and I have also experienced. And so we want to make sure you don't make those same mistakes.
Well, let's maybe start on the capital side of things, of lenders or funders, and where to go to have the right conversations with the right people. And I think that, maybe to start with one of the fallacies or faults of where to go, I think that we have a tendency to seek others out that are similar to ourselves and want to have them invest in our deals. And I think that's a huge mistake, because for the business owner, we seek a pretty healthy return because we're deploying our own capital into our own business and have total control, which means we deserve a high return. And so if we're having it go out passively, a lot of times we're looking for a pretty aggressive return as well. And I remember talking to, one of my childhood friend's dad, who has been in real estate investing for a long, long time, and his dad, who was also in real estate investing. And I was talking to him about a deal, and it's like, yeah, I can offer you like 9 or 10% return on investment. And he was like, Mason, if I'm doing a deal and I'm having my capital tied up for 5 years, I need to at least 8x my money. And I was pretty humbled by that because I was like, dude, me too, like ideally. And that was at the time in the land investing space where I was consistently doubling my money on every single deal. And so I'm like, yeah, that's reasonable. If you are in total control of your capital and you are seeing a double your return every 60 to 180 days, like over a 5-year period, you are 8xing your money. So that is a realistic return for the business owner and sometimes for the passive investor. But in general, that entrepreneur, I feel like might not be your ideal investing avatar. And I feel like where you meet those people is, the local real estate investor association meetup, the people that are business owners, but not really big business owners. Maybe their, EBITDA on a yearly basis is $100,000 to $2 million. They're not huge companies or anything like that. So every dollar that they deploy typically is going right back into their own business, and the returns need to be really, really high and really aggressive in order for them to consider investing into your deal.
Yeah, this is something that I failed on for a long time, where I had plenty of investors, but all of them were just like me or you, where they're seeking huge returns in short periods of time because they're active, not passive. And so one of the major themes of this whole conversation is kind of second level thinking of where can you find these people. So, for me, I think about what are non-real estate groups that you can go to. Maybe a BNI group, BNI for anyone that's not familiar. That was something I was in actually back in Ohio 7 or 8 years ago. And I was thinking about that out here. That would be a great place to find people that have money, that are busy in another business and might be interested in deploying money in your deals at what would be considered a more reasonable rate. So where do the people hang out that you want to meet? I think Mason and his hobby of golfing is a great way to meet other investors as well. I don't particularly love golfing, but there are other versions of that, and you can find these people outside of the local real estate meetups where everyone wants a 100% return in 90 days.
Absolutely. And I think where I kind of failed was as soon as I left corporate and left healthcare, I was very much so, I'm done with this. And I did not maintain the same relationships that I probably should have with the people that are our ideal investor avatar. And to kind of, make that more clear of who the ideal investor avatar for people in our space is, the ones that are pretty happy to invest in our fund, which is 9 to 11% return on an annual basis with a 2 to 5 year commitment, or the people that are putting up capital for our land deals where it's secured by note and deed of trust or a mortgage on it, and they're pretty happy getting those single digit to low double digit returns. And I think if you're coming from the corporate space, maintain those relationships. Don't burn bridges. Stay involved in some of the associations and networking, in quotes, events that are available whenever you are in those corporate spaces. Just maintain that membership and stay involved. I think, as Dan was kind of saying, it reminded me of a Hormozy episode where Hormozy was in his apartment or condo building, and some guy was on the elevator with him and pitched him his business idea, and Hormozy ended up really liking it. And they set up a meeting at the office, and I believe, he ended up investing in the guy's company. And as he was looking at the numbers, he was like, dude, how do you afford to live in my building? That doesn't make sense. You don't make enough money for that to happen. He was like, I can't afford not to live in your building because I get to have conversations like this, and I would have never had this conversation if I didn't get to live there. And so some of the obvious places are the nice gyms of, I work out at Lifetime. I just got back from Lifetime, and that's an expensive membership. We pay probably $250, $300 a month for our membership there. And I meet people on the pickleball courts or the basketball courts or in the sauna. And we've made deals happen from people that I get to meet at the gym and the golf course, like Dan said. And I want to clarify a point of, if you have no money, don't go splurge it in areas where you have to spend a lot of money to get involved. But in terms of where people that hang out that have money, it's there is a certain amount of luxury association with people that have money. So, going to nice bars and stuff like that, and striking up conversations and developing meaningful relationships with those people. But also ask your parents. It doesn't matter if you're in your 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s, if your parents are around, talk to them about what you're doing if you have a good relationship there, and see where they or their friends have money placed, depending on the income bracket. So I think it's really the people that we're seeking out are the more stable people that have ideally been in jobs for a while, but they're not at an age or where they have a super high risk tolerance, or they're at the age where it's just retirement and they need to keep their stuff at a very, very low risk, which is probably 40s to late 50s, in a W-2 job for a long time, decently high earner of earning probably 150 to 500,000 per year, are the ones that are more interested in potentially getting involved in an alternative asset class investment.
Yeah, those are all good points. And if you don't have money, there are cheap options. I mean, you're in the Home Builders Association, which I don't think is substantial at all per year. And the Builder Show, I believe, was $150. And I found a couple great lenders who are much better options for new construction. And one in particular, I just followed up with this morning. And I would never have found this guy otherwise. It's because I went to a networking event. It was very corporate, right? Almost everyone there has a job for a major company, and it worked, right? So I just really want to drive home as a corollary to Mason's point. It doesn't have to be in expensive places. I mean, think about, even something like the Eagles, for people who know what that group is. If you can ever get yourself into those sorts of rooms with older people that are retired, that have money to invest, you can find lenders in these places outside of your local RIA.
Agreed. And I think on lenders and funders, we can't neglect the most obvious place, which I feel like entrepreneurs often forget, which is your local bank. If you've developed a relationship with your bank, and whether it's an institutional large bank like Chase or Bank of America or Wells Fargo, or your small local community bank, go look at all of the loan and lending products that are offered by these banks. And yeah, there are times where you might not be as lendable if you haven't been in business for a long time, but man, the amount of deals that I've given up 50% or more of the profit of the deal as versus going and putting 20 to 30% down and having a monthly payment, where if you have no prepayment penalty and the points make sense. I mean, there are options to go get land loans out there, and it's not going to be the ridiculous terms where you don't have to bring any cash to the table, because banks can't do that, with land as a product. That's why Dan and I started Ground Up Fund, is to, start getting involved in the land funding and lending space. But I think that whenever I am running out of options, going and looking at a bank is one of the ones that is often neglected and might have the actual best rates. And if you can establish a long-term relationship with a bank, you start getting additional perks, especially the small banks. I know Dan and I use big institutional banks for personal and business banking services right now, but some of these small banks, I know people that get $1 million unsecured line of credits from small community banks, because the bank board isn't some giant corporate office in Manhattan. It's 3 farmers that have made a bunch of money and pooled it together to create a bank. So don't forget about the bank option, both small banks, medium banks. There's SBA loan opportunities from the government. There's grant opportunities. Look at the obvious places for the people that have the most money, which are the institutions.
Yeah, and I do use a small local bank too. ABC Bank is, I guess, regional, Colorado and Texas, and I have a line of credit with them. They gave me a line of credit when I was just starting and had very little income. It was small, but it was still helpful for doing a few deals. So look around, and Chase gave me an unsecured line of credit just looking at my tax returns and credit score. No fees to originate. It's $175K. So it's useful. It's at like 9.8%. So look around. There's more options for money than you might know. So beyond just raising money, Mason, what about, especially somewhere small like Colorado Springs, or even though San Diego's not small, but it certainly feels like that when you start to talk to people. If you want to be in real estate in the long term, getting to know people in the government, knowing the local brokers, etc., is absolutely essential. I mean, if you're dealing with anything in the commercial world, especially, there's quite a barrier in place, as far as brokers like to work with people that they know will close, and it's hard to get or hear about anything that's not listed on LoopNet. So I think you've done a better job at this than I have. Can you speak a little bit to getting to know everyone who's actually doing business in your local market, kind of for the long run?
Yeah, I at the end of last year joined the Colorado Springs chapter of the National Association of Home Builders, or Home Building Association, and from that I've already and I've been minimally involved beyond this event out in Vegas, but gotten to know people that are involved in the largest projects in El Paso County right now. Multiple hundreds of millions, billions of dollars of projects, and they're just normal people, just like us. They just have the backing and work in the companies that have the corporate structure, and whether it's a public or private company that just has access to that amount of capital. It's been really, really useful. And within the Home Builders Association, there's a lot of different committees that you have the opportunity as a member to get involved in, from events, which events that Home Builders Association puts on is really beneficial on the networking aspect of things, but also land use and planning and development and policy, where at these meetings, these people are meeting with city planners and city council members and county commissioners and everyone that's involved in the development process, because there's so much money flowing through and into these associations that they have influence at the local government level. I mean, at the federal government level, the people on top at the National Home Builders Association, they're in the White House regularly discussing with, cabinet members and the president of what policies are going to support development. And so being able to get involved at the local level and start meeting these people is huge. And I think that through your local HBA or Home Builders Association is one of the simplest ways to get involved there. Additionally, with local governments, you do have the ability to meet with your representatives if you want to. And if you're involved in projects that have that potential, you're going to have lots of consulting meetings with local government members as well. But I do think in general, do it through a fixed organization like the HBA. That's going to get you really, really involved from that standpoint. And additionally, on the land side, if you're a realtor looking to get your realtor's license, there's a group called the RLI, which is the Realtors Land Institute. They give out the designation of accredited land consultants. So the best land realtors in the space are typically going to be involved in that organization in some capacity. And they're always hosting events, depending on the size of your city, whether or not there's a local chapter. And I feel like the more you can get involved with the professionals on the brokerage side, on the builder, developer, and city and county government side, the more knowledge you're going to have that's going to make you a more effective land investor, land flipper, or builder or developer, whatever it is, just because, whenever you are at this smaller level, follow the herd. Dan and I talk about that a lot, just from the idea of picking markets and seeing where to do business. If there's huge developments that you might not know about if you're not involved in the local government or planning process in some capacity, and you have a lead that's one street over from it, you might be able to offer a lot more because the value of the land is going to go up. So get involved. I think it's highly, highly beneficial in this business.
Yeah, I think there's several kind of points that I hope are clear here. One is that in our space, people who have self-started their own business, similar to the way Mason and I have, there's kind of a resentment towards the corporate world. And you don't have to necessarily create a rigid corporate structure, right? We all wanted to get out of our jobs, but it's still useful to get to know the people within real estate who do have more of a corporate structure, right? Just about everyone at the Home Builders Show has a job and works for a corporation, a publicly traded company of one kind or another. I'm in a real estate group out here where just about everyone works for a big company doing something in the commercial space. And these are really useful groups and connections that I'm making. So don't discount someone because they have a job. If they have a job for a family office or a private equity group doing land acquisition for 300 unit apartment developments, they might know something about raising money, getting entitlements, land, etc. And so that's one point I think that we're making is I think a big part of why Mason and I wanted to do this is because we made the mistake of avoiding anything that felt corporate and avoiding people in that world, which was probably short-sighted. And then along with that, I don't want to totally write off the local real estate groups. I mean, the one I hosted for years in Colorado, I met a lot of useful people. It's just you have to have more of a filter up as you're talking to people and realize that a substantial portion of the room might just waste your time and never do anything. And so that's why these groups that require you to pay something or meetings that require you to pay something tend to have a little bit more of a refined group of people, not for any reason other than they're more serious. They spent money. It meant they were more serious. And so there aren't as many people that are going to ask you to go to coffee to pick your brain and then never do anything with it at these different, I guess, more corporate events. And so a lot of times you'll hear Mason and I talking or giving advice. We're really just preaching to our younger selves. And I think this is something both of us wish we had been more intentional about earlier, because people in these big companies, whether it's the home builders, the investors, the family offices, which are different but still large, have a lot of resources that we want access to ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one way to differentiate is in the local real estate investor association group. It's really nice to be able to meet peers that are in similar positions to you that you can honestly develop friendships with and have people that are on your same level or slightly below or slightly above you if you're actively involved in business and get to know them. And it's comforting to have that relationship building, because it's hard to make friends as an adult. And it's nice to be like, oh, this person's kind of similar to me. But then in these professional association areas where you're meeting people that they don't quite understand what you're going to be doing, they can get it at a high level, but they're like, we have a blank checkbook to go do land acquisitions because our projects are so much longer sighted than what it is you're working on, where our deals, we're trying to turn in 30 to 180 days, and their deals are sometimes 5 to 30 years long. That they're going to be working on 1 or 2 projects their entire career with some of this stuff. So the idea of doing these small deals just doesn't make sense because they get a comfortable salary. But I think within these associations, one way to differentiate where to go for it is one, the free local association meetup that's hosted by someone that's doing it really on a volunteer basis. That's good peer networking. And then the paid association that is getting hosted by people whose job it is, like they're salaried members of this association. They're in charge of it. Usually they have political sway. That's where you're going to network with people that are far above you on the project-based level, but might be involved in a corporate entity. And that's okay, because being able to network with both, you're going to learn about resources that you just didn't necessarily think about. You'll get connected to a banker that's like, yeah, I do land loans at 10% down because that's all we do. But we don't really advertise it or talk about it because we have one builder we work with primarily that does 500 loans with us per year. And those are real conversations that I'm having with people right now. So I think that that's an important opportunity for networking within this space. But Dan, one area that we can kind of talk about that's, a little bit more, not more interesting, but a little different is the people within our pipeline of business, whether it's the landowner or the builder, and how to more effectively, maybe I'm putting my foot in my mouth right now. I think an area we can expand on first is determining whether or not a meeting is worth your time or not worth your time. Because that's something that you brought up and we brought up briefly is at the Realtor Association, the local RIAs, so many people are going to say, hey, let's go get a drink. Let's go grab coffee. I want to pick your brain. When do you determine whether or not that is worth your time or not worth your time to have that meeting? And how do you kind of go about doing that?
Yeah. And sort of caveat we're talking about outside of friendships. I go and get coffee with my friends who are also in real estate all the time just to chat. That's great. That's social, right? Now, to what Mason's saying, you're at some sort of event, you're looking for a real business connection, that's the focus and intention, then I would want something very specific as far as what we're talking about and what the purpose of the meeting is. So if it's something along the lines of, hey, I know that you're looking for better lenders for your new construction. I think I have a good one for you. I'd also like a little help over here. Great. I would take that meeting. That's something I'm working on developing right now. Or, I'm in the same space. I might be able to fund some of your deals, vice versa. That's the sort of thing that would make me go to a meeting. So a clear reason for meeting and clear outcome that we're both reaching towards. I didn't say that very well, but a clear agenda for the meeting and something to talk about and go through that we're both beneficial to both of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more business you do and the more you talk about it and potentially post about it or just share with it, whether it's at a local meetup or just online and on social media, the more people that are going to reach out and the more you're going to have to get very, very comfortable saying no. In our space, we're so excited whenever yeses happen because we're offering pennies on the dollar for land purchases that's going to make us a lot of money. So when we get a yes, it's really exciting. However, on the networking side of things, it's exhausting on a daily basis, probably between Dan and myself, I don't know, 5 to 20 requests for trying to sell us something or trying to meet up or trying to get something out of us, or whether it's just our time or our money or something between LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and just people that are, cold reaching out to us. It gets easier to say no. But at the beginning, it's really exciting. You'll get a message on LinkedIn and it's like, hey, I fund deals from 5 to 10 million. And you're like, why are you reaching out to me? All of my deals are really, really small. And then you kind of realize there's resources out there where you have some tag in your profile that says you're in land or investment or something like that. And they reached out to 20,000 people over the month to do it. So responding to all that stuff just becomes exhausting. And then on the coffee side, it's really appropriate to say, what are you looking to get out of this meeting to people? And not in a rude way or anything like that or in a confrontational way, but I think just being able to say, look, I'm running a business full time. This is what I do. I've got a family, I've got responsibilities, I've got my health. I'm really focused on, I really value my time. What is it you do and how do you see us being able to work together in some capacity? And just seeing what they say. If they say, oh, I'm just looking to get started in what you're doing. If you're in a position where you've put a lot of content out there, just be like, awesome. Go check out the content I've put out there and let me know. Because at this point, I don't think we would be able to have an educated discussion on what it is that I'm doing and how you could potentially get involved. And just see what they do. Of a lot of that stuff that I do whenever people, especially younger people that are looking to get involved, when they reach out, it's a test of, hey, go listen to the Big Picture Blueprint, or go join our school community, or go just like scroll through my LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or whatever for a few minutes and reach back out. And most of the time they never do. It's because whenever you're in an event setting, whether it's a large event or it's a small local real estate investor association meetup, or you just listened to a podcast and it was really fun and it was really exciting, and then you get to talk to some of these people that are actually doing business, you're on a high, and you're not actually going to feel that way whenever you settle down and go back into your job and try to follow back up and everything like that. So you, as the business owner or the entrepreneur, you need to do a good job filtering it, because you're not going to be able to help everyone. And suddenly your business is going to start suffering because you're going to have people wanting to reach out and talk. And you're like, I have a coffee meeting every single day with someone else, and I've never gotten any return on my investment. Not that everything has to be a return, but there's so many time wasters in this space that get excited about listening to a couple podcasts or going to a couple events that are never actually going to do a deal. And you are better than that. You don't have to, be there for every single person that wants to use your time and provides no value to you. Because I think while in friendships and relationships, I don't believe in transactional relationships, but in business, a lot of times it's a transactional relationship, and you can't serve and service everybody around you.
Yeah, I think that was well said. And so I keep this in mind on the other side of the coin. If I'm reaching out to somebody who is well ahead of me, I would never, ever just say, oh, want to go to coffee, or can I pick your brain? That if somebody says that to me, it's so irritating. I don't care. I'm not going to coffee with you. So, for example, there was a guy I wanted to get in touch with a couple years ago, and so I bought a bunch of mail on his website, used his mail service, and was able to chat with them a little bit. Or if you know someone's looking for something, you can reach out and just tell them, hey, I think I heard you on this podcast. I saw that you're looking for this potentially. Here's my solution for you. And don't ask for anything, or whatever it might be. Just don't ask them for something. Provide them with something first. And then if it goes well, you can potentially ask for their time, ideally using something you talked about in your prior conversation with them as the justification.
Absolutely. Well, it goes back to the corporate idea of whenever I would be interviewing for a job, the amount of research that I would do on the company and the people that I would be interviewing with, I felt like I knew who they were. Of most companies are going to have some form of mission, vision, and values, and you're going to be able to find out from their digital footprint what they're about, what they're doing, who they are, and do a little bit of research. And a lot of us within this space of this, entrepreneurial with a bit of a social media facing, have some form of consulting where don't be afraid to offer to pay someone to get advice. If you actually want advice from someone, pay them for it. And that's not a pitch for Dan and I doing any sort of consulting or anything like that. But I've got mentors that I pay a lot of money for because they have the experience that I don't have. And we have a friendship relationship and a consulting relationship. And that works out really, really well, where I get a lot more than what I pay for because you get to know these people and it really works out that way. But I think in general if you're seeking value for yourself, what value are you going to be able to provide to them? And sometimes it's just money. And it reminds me of, I'm pretty sure it was Warren Buffett that told a story of when he was trying to work for, God, I'm blanking on his name now.
I know what you're talking about, but I can't think of his name either.
He wrote
Paul Tudor Jones?
I don't think so. I think he wrote The Random Walk Down Wall Street. It was whoever one of Buffett's first bosses was. And I might be just making up this story and I could be talking about someone else, but Buffett was like, I would love to work for you for free. And the boss was like, that's too expensive for me. You would need to pay me. And that's the truth a lot of the time, because the amount of people that come of like, I'd love to work for you for free. And it's like, well, it's going to take me 60 hours to train you, for you to potentially add value to me in some capacity. So you're not going to add value to me in any way other than these two ways of providing me lenders or providing me land. And if you can provide that, then we can have a lot more conversation. So I think the main point here is value your time and recognize your station, and whether or not you're able to provide value whenever you're seeking out some of these more mentoring type relationships, I feel like is kind of what we're talking about here.
Ben Graham. It was Ben Graham that Buffett
one I knew it for.
Yeah.
I didn't know the name at all.
I think we've made most of our point. One more thought I have is just the longer I do this, the more it's driven in my head how small the top of everything is. I forget the statistic, but like a huge portion of realtors last year didn't do a single transaction. And I know a few realtors that had their best year ever last year. And the reality is it's a pyramid upside down where the few people at the top are just taking everything. And it's like this in really every aspect of life that I've seen, where, I've gotten myself into a good real estate group out here, and from multifamily to industrial to land, it's everyone's kind of at the top of their field. And so my point in saying that is, if you do this effectively and you get into the right rooms, maybe even just establish one meaningful relationship with somebody who's doing well in their respective field, they know everybody else, right? So you will find one really solid private money lender, you do good by them, you get them the returns you promise, and I bet all their friends want to lend money too, and they'll introduce you to them if you do a good job. So you don't necessarily have to do this forever or be so intentional forever. Once you get into the right rooms, it can kind of daisy chain between friends where, they know everyone else at the top of whatever it is you're trying to do.
Absolutely. And I think one caveat to all of this is you need to have done something at this point. because networking can be, it's kind of like cleaning when you need to do your homework. Of you're procrastinating, but you're making it feel like it's productive, but it's not actually worth anything. You don't need a lender that can fund $50 million deals if you haven't done a $5,000 deal. And that's always going to be the most important thing, is being able to recognize, okay, when do I need to work in the business, actively making deals happen? And when do I need to develop my network so whenever I can grow and scale? I think so much of us are so focused on scaling and being able to function at that capacity whenever we reach it, that we don't actually reach it because we're thinking too much about scaling rather than just like brute force work in the business. And that's what a majority of your time should be. However, with that being said, like in reality, you want to develop relationships in this space. You want to, make friends in this space and get involved with other people that are like-minded. And that's kind of the advice we're attempting to give here. So don't think of networking as something as the absolute best and highest use of your time at the very beginning, but there are some local events that can happen, on a monthly basis that could be very beneficial. And same thing with reaching out of, something we have here on our notes is builders. And if you're in this space, it's really useful to talk to builders, whether you're talking to the people that are way, way up high, the DR Hortons, the Lennars, the people that have land acquisition folks. Go talk to those people on network, cold outreach them, see what they're buying, get to know them, and then you can start providing value. But also the mom and pop builders of where they hang out, which is usually the local home builders association. Get to know them, figure out what their criteria is, and do some old school, like Michael Scott, The Office. Go drop off a gift basket and just, it doesn't matter if they don't know who you are, of, Colorado Land Acquisition Services. People are like, oh, I've heard of you. I'm like, no, you haven't. You've never got the big report. This is brand new name. But being able to just have confidence in the brand that you're creating and reach out to people and get it so where people do start hearing about you, I think can be really, really beneficial in the long run, after you've actually done some deals.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that's pretty much a good place to leave it. This can, if you take this advice, it can help you find really all the resources you need in your business. And that's the goal of it. And if you do it more effectively than Mason and I, you can save yourself years of wasting your time at coffee meetings that will amount to nothing, as we both have.
Absolutely. And I will leave everyone with this. I asked Dan to coffee, and that's how him and I became friends. So listen to us. Don't listen to us. Get involved in the space. I see you trying to talk, Dan.
Yeah, well, because I know we can't leave it like that. For the listeners, he was a friend of a friend, someone whose opinion I respected and trusted, and that's why I was, oh, sure, of course. So if you have an in where you're getting introduced to somebody who's high level, but your personal friend who's also personal friends with them makes the introduction, potentially then, yes, you can go to coffee or get a lunch or something like that. But there's only if there's that mutual connection that works.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and my only goal with that was I lost my gym buddy, and Dan's pretty fit, so I was looking for a new gym partner. I didn't really care about his land business or anything like that. I just wanted a new gym partner. And that's how it happened.
All right.
You find shared interests with these people, that are at, above, or right around the same level, and you can develop a lot together. Make sure to do it in an appropriate way that makes sense, and utilize your network, utilize your friends of, if you are a good, decent, trustworthy people, your network will help connect you to other people that are appropriate. But with that being said, I know it's a shorter episode, but hopefully it was a lot of actionable and tangible advice for effective networking within this land space. And we will leave you guys with that. So this is Mason McDonald and Dan Haberkost with the Big Picture Blueprint, signing off.